Sploshy learns to paint. Whoa there, Sploshy. I don't think you're quite ready to start painting yet. It looks like you haven't done enough preparation. There are a lot of things you need to do before you can start painting. For example, are you sure you have the right color? Have you considered the tools you're going to need? What type of paint you need to use? How much paint you're going to need? How the surface must be prepared? And have you considered your safety? Well, Sploshy, it looks like you have a lot to learn. Let me explain the steps. The first thing we need to do is consider your safety. Different paints have different dangers associated with them. They can be flammable, have narcotic vapors, or cause damage to your skin. For this reason, it's important to 1. Read the safety warnings on the back of each bucket. 2. Always wear protective overalls. 3. Never smoke, drink or eat whilst painting. 4. Make sure you have good ventilation to prevent vapor buildup. 5. Keep paint away from children and pets. And 6. Put up signs that will warn visitors of the wet paint. There, that's better. Don't you feel safer already? Right then, let's have a look at your tools, shall we? It seems we might need to get you some new tools, Sploshy. Let's first consider what you'll need, as you definitely don't want to go to the store in the middle of a paint job. You should have the following items ready. Surface cleaning agent RB10, clean and degrease, a quality paint roller and tray, a paintbrush, sandpaper, scraper, RB10 crack fix, masking tape, old newspapers or a protective drop sheet, mutton cloth, an old bucket for cleaning, the appropriate cleaning solvent, and your paint. That's better. Looks like you've got everything you need, except enough paint. Before you buy any paint, you need to make sure that you've chosen the right paint for the job. The type of paint you'll need will be determined by what you'll be painting, the existing condition of the surface to be painted, and where the surface is located. This will also determine whether or not you'll need to apply a primer or an undercoat, and if the paint needs to have special ingredients for different purposes, such as water, stain, UV, or abrasion resistance. There are a lot of different types of paint available, with different types of finishes, but generally they're either an oil-based paint or water-based paint. Water-based paints are usually a little more user-friendly because they're easy to clean, they dry quickly and emit fewer odors. Oil-based paints are generally more durable and often have a smoother finish. Choosing the right type of paint can be tricky, but it's worth doing your research to ensure that you won't waste any time or money. Makes sense, doesn't it, Sploshy? And if you can't decide which color to use, try using a cherished decor piece to give you inspiration. That'll do fine, Sploshy. Now that you've decided which paint you're going to use, you need to determine how much paint you'll need. For the best results, it's important to calculate the correct amount of paint you're going to need before you start. Here's an easy way to determine how much paint you'll need. Calculate the surface area by measuring the height and multiplying it by the width. For example, 2 walls that will be painted the same color totals 2.5 meters times 8 meters, which is 20 square meters. Measure the areas on the wall that won't be painted, like the doors and windows, and subtract this amount from the total surface area. Multiply this by the number of coats needed. Remember to calculate the primer coats, undercoats, and top coats separately. 2 top coats will require 15 square meters times 2, that equals 30 square meters. Divide this by the coverage rate for the paint. If the coverage rate is 8 square meters per liter, then the total surface area, 30 square meters, must be divided by 8, which means we'll need 5 liters of paint for the top coat. Keep in mind that the actual coverage rate depends on the painter's skills, the nature of the surface, and the paint methods used. It's also a good idea to add 10% to the total to allow for touch-ups. Now that you're ready to start painting, Sploshy, it's time to prepare the surface and the surrounding area. First of all, you'll need to remove all the furniture from the room and clear all items from the walls, including hardware like electrical outlets or switch covers. Next time, remember to switch off the circuit breaker before you do this. Now, to help protect your floors, you'll need to lay out a drop sheet before you start preparing the surfaces. The surface to be painted must be clean and strong. Let's have a closer look at your wall, shall we? I think this wall definitely needs a bit of work. Let's do some surface preparation. Start by making it flat. In other words, remove any protrusions like nails, scrape off any old flaking paint, fill any holes with RB10 crack fix, and sand down any unevenness. Clean the walls with surface cleaning agent RB10 Clean and Degrease, and to save some time and your back, it's best to use a sponge mop when washing the walls. If you have any mold or mildew, it's important to remove it because it poses a health risk. You can do this by using RB10 anti-fungicide as per the directions, and then wash the surface again with clean water. Once the surface is completely dry, you can start to mask off the areas that shouldn't be painted, like window frames and cornices with pieces of masking tape. Make sure that the tape is applied straight and that there are no bubbles that could allow paint to seep under it and spoil the clean, straight line. Hey, that looks better. Remember, if surface preparation is done correctly, you won't necessarily need an expensive paint to guarantee good results. Even expensive, high-quality paint will fail if surface preparation was done poorly, so it's important not to skip this process. Remember, Sploshy, poor paint results can be caused by incorrect surface preparation, using the wrong primer, choosing the wrong type of paint, poor application techniques, not allowing sufficient drying times, or applying paint during adverse weather conditions. So, make sure you've done your research properly. It's a good idea to read the bucket before you start painting, because paint drips might obscure the information later, and you need to know how long the drying times are so that you can plan accordingly. You should plan for at least 2 top coats to ensure a uniform appearance. And remember to only start painting when the surface is completely dry, and try to finish early enough in the day for the paint to dry sufficiently before nightfall. Now that all of the preparation work is done, you can finally start to paint the first layer. Depending on the condition of the surface, you might need to apply a primer or an undercoat before applying the top coats. Primers are special paints designed to adhere strongly to a surface and provide a good foundation for the finishing coats. Start by mixing your paint or primer properly. When you're painting a room, areas that are difficult to reach with a roller have to be cut in with a 75 to 100 millimeter paintbrush before you start painting the large areas with a roller. Don't cut in the entire room because you always need to keep a wet edge to avoid lap marks, so only do small areas as you go along. Dip the brush into the paint container so that only half of each bristle is loaded. If you dip the brush too deep, the excess paint will clog up and dry out in the base of the bristles, and it's more likely to make a mess. Gently scrape the excess paint off on the inside of the container. Start at the top and drag the brush downward, but try to still keep the handle above the bristles. If you've splattered paint on any other surfaces, the splatters need to be cleaned immediately with the appropriate solvent. Nicely done, Sploshy. Once you've cut in the small areas, you can proceed to paint the larger areas with a roller. But make sure that the paint doesn't dry between these two steps. It's worth investing in a quality roller cover. Cheap covers often don't hold enough paint, and it'll take you twice as long to finish the job. Make sure that you're using the correct type of roller cover, also known as a sleeve, for the type of paint that you're using and the type of surface that you're going to paint. If you're using a new sleeve, first wrap it up in masking tape and then peel it off to remove loose fibers and reduce shedding. Attach the roller to a 1.2 meter painter's extension pole or a broomstick, and this will give you better control, and you won't have to climb up and down a ladder the whole time. Whilst the cut edge is still wet, dip the roller into the paint and soak well to make sure there's a uniform coating on the roller. Remove excess paint by rolling it on the tray. Okay then, Sploshy, let's get rolling. Painting with a roller can be broken down into 3 steps. Step 1. Application. Apply the paint to the surface with the roller in an up and down zigzag motion, making sure that you cover half of the previous stroke with the new stroke. Only do a few square meters at a time. Step 2. Spreading. Spread the newly applied paint with horizontal strokes, once again overlapping each stroke as you go along. Step 3. Laying off. To finish the process, use the unloaded paint roller to lay off any excess paint with vertical top-to-bottom strokes, working with the flow of gravity. If you follow these steps, you should have a uniform finish in the end. Great job, Sploshy! Once you've completed painting, clean the brush, roller and paint tray with the appropriate cleaner or solvent. If you can't clean your tools right away, immerse them in water so that they can be cleaned later. When the paint is dry, you can remove the masking tape by carefully pulling it off the wall at a 90-degree angle to produce a clean edge. Don't wait longer than 24 hours to do this because the tape becomes more difficult to remove over time. It's a good idea to keep a bit of the same batch of paint in case the painted surface gets damaged and you need to feather in touch-ups. Remember to store your extra paint in a cool, dry place and out of the reach of children. Hold on, Sploshy. I know you might be eager to decorate straight away, but you have to allow the paint to dry for at least 24 hours before you start moving in furniture or hanging items on the wall. Well done, Sploshy. It looks great. And because you've used the correct products in the correct way, you can be sure it's going to keep looking great for years to come. Promac Paints. Our quality spreads further.